Imagine a lone sentry on top of an impregnable stone tower at dawn, scanning the mist-shrouded fields for the slightest glimmer of smoke or the distant gleam of metal. Medieval castles relied on these vigilant observers and sophisticated alarm systems that detected enemies long before they reached the walls. But against the background of stories about lighthouses and mirrors, legends arose about magic lenses that could see even through fog. In today's video, we will talk about the real methods of medieval surveillance, towers, torches, and signal codes, and separate them from the myths about crystal spyglasses. If you like exploring the ingenious secrets of history, please like and subscribe to join our journey. In the centuries following Rome's fall, European lords faced a dizzying array of threats: Viking raiders along the coasts, Magyar horsemen sweeping through the plains, and rival nobles scheming from neighboring fiefs. Amid this turbulence, castles evolved from simple wooden motte and bailey fortresses into complex strongholds, designed not only to repel attackers at their gates but to spot danger long before it arrived. The first line of defense was the Watchtower, an elevated vantage point where the sentry's keen eyes scanned the horizon for any hint of advancing forces. These towers, often built on the highest natural ground, ranged from squat stone structures to soaring keeps over 100 feet tall. A single tower could command visibility over several square miles of farmland, woodland, and road. A mounted patrol might spot dust clouds on a distant road or movement among woodland clearings, but only the watchtower provided a continuous, panoramic lookout. Sentries learned to recognize telltale signs: the glint of sun on a spear point, the flicker of a campfire at dusk, or the unnatural order of animal tracks disappearing into thicket, signs that men, not beasts, had passed. Once danger was detected, rapid communication was essential. In many regions, chains of signal towers were erected at intervening points on hilltops, ridgelines, or even tall trees so that a warning could leapfrog dozens of miles in minutes. Torch signals by night and smoke puffs by day formed a rudimentary semaphore code. One puff might mean hostile scout. 2 puffs signaled small raiding party. 3 indicated large army approaching. Some codes even distinguished between directions of travel or noted the presence of cavalry versus infantry. For example, along the frontier of Saxony and Francia in the 9th century, hostile incursions from Slavic tribes prompted King Louis the German to establish a network of wooden beacon towers at intervals of roughly 10 miles. Each tower held a garrison of 3 men responsible for maintaining a constant watch and for igniting a beacon fire if needed. Chroniclers record that on one autumn evening in 869 CE, watchmen on Tower 7 spotted faint plumes of smoke on the horizon. Within an hour, successive fires blazed on Towers 8 and Ix, alerting the royal garrison at Reims to dispatch reinforcements and thwart a midnight assault. Meanwhile, in the British Isles, the threat of Viking longships spurred coastal lords to erect simple stone watchposts above rocky inlets. Here, lookouts used polished bronze mirrors to catch sunlight and flash it toward a neighbor post half a mile away, creating a daytime signaling network that complemented the beacon chains. This technique, sometimes called heliography, relied on the physics of specular reflection. A mirror angled just right could send a sunbeam over hills and across valleys with surprising reach. Falconer treatises of the 12th century note that a well-polished shield or convex bronze disc yielded even greater range, as the curvature focused and projected the beam. Yet all these methods depended entirely on clear visibility. Fog, heavy rain, or moonless nights could render watchtowers blind. It is here that tales of magical lenses and spyglasses began to circulate, stories of crystal balls or enchanted glass discs that allowed sentries to see enemies through mist or darkness. These legends, plausibly rooted in the recent revival of classical knowledge about optics, hinted at powers beyond mere human sight. But before we examine those myths, let's explore the core techniques that truly kept medieval realms safe. While mystical lenses remained tales for the tavern, medieval engineers and scholars did make strides in understanding light and vision. Monastic scriptoria preserved fragments of Aristotle's and Ptolemy's treatises, some of which described rudimentary experiments with lenses. Glassmakers in Venice and the Islamic world produced small convex and concave glass pieces By the 12th century, early spectacles for reading, though full-scale spyglasses did not appear until the early 17th century, these optical curiosities fueled speculation that a watchman's distant gaze might one day be intensified. In practice, though, purely mechanical tools sufficed for most surveillance needs. The human eye, when trained, could distinguish details at remarkable distance, this especially against contrasting backgrounds. Sentries learned to accentuate contrast by placing colored cloth or polished metal behind objects they wished to flag. Some castles painted their signal pavilions in high-visibility colors red or white, so that even a lone-mounted scout could be seen from afar. Apart from mirrors and polished metals, another innovation was the use of telescoping wooden and leather tubes. Though lacking optical lenses, these viewing tubes helped a watchman steady his arm and block peripheral distractions. By peering through a narrow aperture, he could focus on a single point on the horizon, interpreting movement more easily. Chronicler Gerald of Wales describes such a device around 1180 CE, noting that with this tube a sentinel can mark the approach of a rider ere he reaches the outer moat. While not improving magnification, the device reduced glare and improved focus. Signal codes themselves evolved into complex manuals. At the famed Chateau Galliard on the Seine, built by Richard the Lionheart in the late 12th century, engineers designed a system of shutters and flags on the tower ramparts. By altering the position and number of flags, sentries could convey not just the presence of an enemy but also their size, armament, and direction of march. A Castle-esque constable carried the key to this codebook, a leather-bound compendium outlining the 5-flag semaphore for daytime and the 4 torch sequences for night. This level of sophistication allowed for preemptive strikes or diplomatic parley before the foe ever arrived. Beyond flags and fires, sound signals, horns, bells, and drumbeats rounded out the communication arsenal. On mist-shrouded mornings, when even signal towers lay silent, a series of horns could carry over a mile of open ground. Different tones, a high trumpet blast versus a low horn denoted varying threats. In Normandy, a 3-blast trumpet call meant call to arms, prompting every knight within earshot to mount and muster within the courtyard. Thus, the medieval watchman's toolkit combined human skill, simple optics, and ingenious signaling. Yet despite these real methods, the allure of an all-seeing lens lingered. Tailly's spread of glass panes ground to perfection that could pierce through fog as if it were a screen. One 14th century chronicle from Bohemia recounts how a sorcerer miracle worker loaned King John of Luxembourg a crystal sphere that revealed the enemy encampment across the Elbe, shrouded in morning mist. But when historians and archaeologists scrutinize these stories, they find no evidence of such devices, only a testament to the human desire for a magical shortcut in the art of war. The legend of magical lenses likely owes its persistence to a mix of genuine optical experiments and the medieval fascination with alchemy and sorcery. Glassmakers experimenting with convex shapes noticed that burnished glass could concentrate sunlight to ignite tinder and effect. Aristotle had described, "It was not a stretch for storytellers to invert this function. If a lens could start a fire, perhaps it could also gather light to enhance vision." Such myths served multiple purposes. They elevated the prestige of a castle and its lord by suggesting access to supernatural technology. They intimidated would-be attackers who wondered if their approach might be seen through solid walls or impenetrable fog. And they entertained chroniclers and minstrels eager for tales of wonder alongside accounts of siege and siegecraft. In reality, no archaeological digs at castle sites, whether in England, France, or the German Rhineland, have yielded fragments of large military lenses predating the 16th century. Instead, excavations uncover the everyday tools: polished bronze mirror shards, iron torches, flagstaffs, and the burned remains of wooden signal towers. The absence of glass lenses speaks volumes. Medieval surveillance relied on human vigilance, simple optics, and robust communication networks, no magic required. Nevertheless, the myth of the magical lens influenced the Renaissance rediscovery of optics. Scholars like Roger Bacon and Ibn al-Haytham delved into the science of refraction, eventually paving the way for telescopes. In that sense, the medieval legends anticipated real technological breakthroughs by centuries. The dream of seeing further and clearer spurred genuine inquiry, transforming speculative magic into practical invention. For modern viewers, the story of medieval range-finding offers several lessons. First, necessity breeds ingenuity. Faced with constant threat, castle builders and watchmen devised multi-layered systems that blended architecture, human skill, and simple physics. Second, myths often reflect longing more than reality. The temptation to imagine a magic lens reveals our desire to transcend human limits. Finally, the transition from legend to science underscores the importance of critical thinking, distinguishing plausible innovation from fanciful fable. Today, when we rely on high-resolution satellites, radar systems, and night vision goggles, it's easy to forget the humble origins of long-distance observation. Yet the centuries atop medieval towers laid the groundwork for our modern surveillance infrastructure. Their wars were fought not just with swords and arrows, but with beams of light, columns of smoke, and the sharpest eyes of their age. The next time you see a distant storm on the horizon or glimpse movement across a field, remember those watchmen whose craft combined vigilance, geometry, and the timeless human quest to see what lies beyond the visible.